Today in Flex in the City, we interview Yvonne Connolly, Country Head Ireland of Carne Group. Yvonne brings enormous energy, positivity, and optimism to financial service industry and reminds us of the critical importance of connection in order to engage and energize clients and employees. That coming up for Flex and the City, happening right now.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Rachel Treese on Flex in the City. And this afternoon, I am absolutely thrilled to have our first guest from the Republic of Ireland. And her name is Yvonne Connolly. And she is the country head of the Carne Group in Ireland. Good afternoon, Yvonne.
Hi, Rachel. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on your podcast this morning. I'm delighted to be involved.
You're very, very welcome. It's great to have you. And I'm particularly interested in finding out a little more about you. I know you've had a rather interesting journey into where you are now and your role in the Carne Group. So would you be able to share with our listeners a little bit more about you and your story?
Great. Thank you very much. I grew up in a very rural part of Ireland in County Monaghan, which is just on the border with Northern Ireland. I'm one of 6 children. I'm the 5th of 6 children. My mum was a primary school teacher, and my dad was quite entrepreneurial. He had his own business. And I suppose in terms of my career, and I guess where I am to date, both my mum and dad were very much my first big influences. So my mum is from County Donegal, which is right up in the northwest of Ireland, a beautiful, beautiful part of the world, but very, very rural. And as I said earlier, she's a primary school teacher, and her mum and my grandmother, and actually her aunt, my grandaunt, they were both primary school teachers. So they were born in the early 1900s. They were, kind of women that were really ahead of their time. Their careers were important to them. Their independence was important to them. When my grandaunt got married, she got married late. Her husband actually gave up his job, and he looked after. They only had one son, but she continued working as a teacher, and her husband gave up his job and looked after their son. So they very much impressed on my mum the importance of your career, the importance of independence, being independent and being financially independent. So, kind of for me and my older sister, that message kind of came down like really strongly from my mum. And I have one daughter who's 18 and who hopes to be going to college whenever college comes back. So, so she's getting this message to say, listen, you're the 4th generation. This is, these are important things. So, she was certainly a huge influence in making sure, that I got a good education, that I worked hard, and that I worked hard at my career. And then from my dad, he, I grew up in a business family. The business was going on all around us in our home. So, kind of understanding the importance of your customers, understanding your staff, how important your staff is, understanding how to manage costs, making sure you collect money. When you grow up around that, it just becomes kind of really part of your DNA. So that whole owner mindset, I just lived with that right from day one. So they were both huge influences on me and my siblings in terms of growing up. In terms of my own career then, I probably was trying to please both my parents. So when I left school, I trained as a primary school teacher. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And actually my mum said, primary school teacher, it's a good career for, if you have a family, it's a good career. So I did that. Fortunately for the children of Ireland, I didn't stay teaching. I taught for 1 year and decided that really wasn't for me. And I decided to go back to college to do a postgrad. I'd always really liked business in school, and obviously kind of growing up around a business. So I did a postgrad in business, and then I was really fortunate to get a training contract with KPMG, and where I trained as a corporate tax lawyer and or corporate tax accountant. And I have to say, kind of the training you get. I've trained as a chartered accountant and stuff, but the training you get in those firms is just fantastic, and really hard work, lots of hard play in there as well. But just really wonderful training for whatever you want to do after that. Most of the people I trained with aren't accountants. They're not doing anything with on the financial side at all. They're just doing general business and stuff, but it's a wonderful training. So I trained in corporate tax, but I didn't want to do tax. So the funds industry was really just starting in Ireland, kind of in the early, I'm not even going to say, the early 1990s when I was in KPMG, which makes me sound very old. But at the IFSC, the International Financial Services Centre was just getting going. And so all of these new companies had come to Ireland, and it was just fantastic. And I was fortunate to get a role in Deutsche Bank's fund administration and custody business. I think I was probably employee number 20. That's a business that State Street acquired that business in the early 2000s, and that employs about 2,000 people now. So got in like really early. The business, we were, kind of figuring it out. We were working, we didn't have a template. We hadn't people who had done this for 10 or 20 or 30 years. We were just working out how to do it, but like really exciting, really, kind of growing business. So I stayed there for about 12 years. And I had really interesting jobs, like, kind of anything new that came into the company, whether it's new system, new instruments, anything that new came, my team and I looked after that. So that was always learning and growing, which was fantastic. Then kind of when State Street bought the business, it was kind of a time for me to say, okay, kind of maybe I'll go and do something else. And I suppose going back to my child, kind of to my family, I decided to leave financial services altogether and to go into the wine business. So my brother had taken over our family business, and kind of wine, like it was the mid 2000s, Ireland was booming. Kind of people had, people had more money to spend, but kind of things. It was really great. So we set up a wine business ourselves, and like everything, we went big. We imported wine from all over the world. We had wine shops. We sold wine online. We had a wholesale business, so we supplied to shops and bars and restaurants and hotels. We had a wine bar and a restaurant, and we even had an entrepreneur business for a couple of years. So again, mad, busy, very, very pressurized, but great fun until the global financial crisis happened. And once the global financial crisis happened, that just became a huge challenge to the business. So at that stage, kind of the business has continued, not in the wine shops, but the wholesale business has continued and had done pretty well until the current crisis. So please, hopefully we'll get through that current crisis. My brother still runs the business, and hopefully that, kind of we get through, which is it's difficult at the moment. But so I decided to go back into financial services, and then I went back and did some consulting initially, and then I worked with and I know we'll talk about it later, but kind of the importance of the relationships that you build up over time. But when I came back into financial services, I really benefited from those good relationships I had with people over the years. So, Willie Slattery in State Street, when I talked to him, he immediately said, yeah, I have a project, come in as a consultant, work with me on this. And I came in and I worked with State Street for about 6 months. I'd worked with Joe Duffy, who's the country head of BNY Mellon in Ireland. He had a project, they'd just acquired PNC and doing that integration and stuff. So I went to work with him for 6 months. And then 10 years ago, I came back to work with John Donoghue. And it very much felt like coming back, because John had left, he'd established Carne pretty much at the same time as I'd gone into the wine business. He'd set up Carne with a number of the people that we had worked with for years. So if I was coming back to work with people, I knew it was very much like coming back, and it's been a fantastic journey since.
Absolutely. It sounds like you've come home again, doesn't it?
I came home, absolutely.
Came home. So I'd love to know a little bit, I mean, you're such an energetic person. What really motivates you? What are your core values, Yvonne?
I love being part of a growing business. I think I probably get bored easily, so I love when things are changing and evolving. And one of the things, we're kind of reading lots of books at the moment, but one of the things about, kind of, we were looking at tech companies and, kind of tech companies who try out lots of things. They don't all work out. They try them fast. If they're not working out, they close them down fast. So I love all of that. I love, kind of doing new things. I love working with fantastic people. I go to work with my friends. Not everybody is my, kind of not everybody. I'm not best friends with everybody, but we have an amazing group of people at Carne, and I love working with really good people. In terms of the values, again, I'm really fortunate that my personal values very much align with our company values. So it's client focused. We're all about the client. If we don't have clients, we don't have our business. So they're number one in our business. And we hire people. We do psychometric testing and stuff when we're hiring people, and they need to want to do service. So that's really important. That whole trust and integrity, just so important in our industry for us as fiduciaries, but that trust that's just hugely important. That owner mindset, again, I kind of going back to my upbringing, and I've been really fortunate. I felt a huge ownership of the business right from day one with Carne Group. So and that's kind of, I've been able to satisfy that entrepreneurial spirit, because actually winning the business and keeping the business and minding our clients, that's personal to me. So I've been able to satisfy that. And then the other thing is respect and kindness. So we have a thing at Carne that we want to hire the smartest, nicest people. And actually, and if those smartest, nicest people, they'll look after each other, they'll look after our clients, and they'll work hard. So that in terms of values, I feel I'm incredibly lucky.
Fantastic. And so I'd love to know, it's great to speak to leaders in the financial services industry and talk to them about who's inspired you. When you look on the sort of world stage at all these amazing people, is there somebody that's really inspired you?
Yeah, there's loads of people that have inspired me. I'm a big sports fan. I mean, I don't play a lot of sport myself, but I love watching sport, all sorts of sports. So there's been amazing sports people like Muhammad Ali, like Michael Jordan. I've been watching The Last Dance, and that was kind of one of the first things I watched in lockdown. Serena Williams, Michael Schumacher, Roy Keane, LeBron James, Colin Kaepernick. I mean, I think these are all hugely talented people who've worked incredibly hard, who've really inspired the people around them, whether in teams, inspired them to great success. But a lot of them have used their position to do a lot of good. So, loads of people in that space. I mean, obviously on the sustainability front, which is becoming, which is it's just the right thing to do. It's a huge thing for our industry. But there's been fantastic people like Al Gore. Like, we had Al Gore come and speak at our Funds Congress event last year, and he was just amazing. And just, his message of, kind of actually giving all the information, letting people know how bad this is, showing the people how bad this is, but actually that we all came away with hope as well, and that there's so much development, so much technology. We can fix this problem if we have the will to fix this problem. So I think he's just amazing. I think Greta Thunberg is amazing. I think she's young, and I think, kind of for young people to see the impact that she's been able to make, and how widely it's been heard in the last year and a half and stuff. I think she's just wonderful. And she actually makes a virtue of her neurodiversity and stuff, because she said, she talks and she sees things in black and white. Things are not nuanced for her. She says, well, this is just the science. Just listen to the science. But she's just fantastic. And I suppose in financial services, I am, a bit closer to home. I think that, like Marie O'Connor, who is one of the founders of, kind of our industry in Ireland. She was, when I was a young trainee accountant in KPMG, she was already a partner, and there were very, very few partners. When I was in KPMG, there were no female partners in KPMG. And I mean, it's changed hugely now, thankfully. But so she was one of the few partners in the accountancy firms in Ireland at that time. But she's just, and she was the head of the asset management practice. She went on to be head of the asset management practice and lead that huge group of people. But she was just, she was just all about the relationship. She was just fantastic. Just great with her clients, great with her people, great with the kind of, we were service providers, and she's just so generous with her time. She talks about, she talked about people having a board of directors, having a group of people that you can trust, that you can always go back to and whatever. So she's got great messages for us and a great story. But I remember that you'd meet her in a work context and, she'd know your name and she'd be just really, really lovely. But actually you could meet her completely outside of work, randomly on the street at a weekend, and she'd say, hello, Yvonne, hello, and actually, I mean, I wish I was as good at names as she was, but she was a wonderful, wonderful role model for us women in the industry. And the other person then, I guess, is John Donoghue. I think John is just amazing. I mean, he's he's a real visionary. He works really hard. He's relentless. He drives us and he drives the business, but he dreams big. He's been incredibly brave. I mean, he could have had an easier life and stuff, to go on a different path, but he's incredibly brave. He's built a great team around him, and a great business. And he's continuously learning. He's all the time reading, and he's just continuously learning and innovating. So, and one of the reasons he wants us to be successful, and we talked about, very early when I came back to Carne, he was talking about this, and we were trying to understand what makes him tick. Why has he done this? And for loads of different reasons he's done this. But one of the things was he wants the company to be successful, because the more successful we can be, the more we can give back to society, to our local communities, to Chernobyl Children's International is a huge charity for our firm. The values are just fantastic, and he's a great person to work with.
And this is wonderful. This aligns with our values about making financial services better. So it's fantastic to hear that.
Yeah.
I want to touch base on Marie O'Connor, and you mentioned her. And I'm just very curious, because there'll be probably listeners from all over the world who perhaps don't understand how things have evolved in Ireland. And a very good friend of mine had told me something around the fact that her mother, so 40 years ago, had been working for an airline in Ireland and ended up having to stop work because she got married. So I just wonder how that might have affected women's role in leadership. Has it held people back, or just out of curiosity?
Absolutely. Married women in kind of in the civil service and in public sector, and they had to give up their jobs when they got married. And actually, it was around in one form or the other probably since the early 1940s through to, actually, it was 1973. So it's not that long ago that was actually abolished. And like my own mum, as a teacher, she had to give up her job when she got married. So it probably is something that's delayed, kind of that certainly impacted kind of women in business, and kind of women's careers in general. So like KPMG, as I say, I started my training with KPMG in 1990. I finished in 93, and there still were no female partners in KPMG at that stage. Now there's lots of them now. So I think we've come on, it's made huge stride. I think, kind of, if you come from the 1950s, came to Ireland, it's just a completely different world. I think we caught up. There were things in our past that held us back, but I think just as a country, I think we really caught up. So lots of, kind of, if I look across the industry, there's lots of female leadership in the asset management industry in Ireland, which is fantastic. Look at kind of the new management companies that have come in, have been established in Ireland, kind of as a result of Brexit. A lot of those have got female leaders. Kind of, I've just finished, I was chair of Irish Funds for a year that just finished in May. The current chair now is Lisa Keeley, is obviously another woman, and actually our vice chair is Maria Ging from BlackRock. She's our vice chair at the moment. So we're going to actually have, for the first time, we're going to have the chair will be a woman 3 years in a row. So that's a huge change.
Huge change, isn't it? Goodness me. So one of the things that we always do on Flex in the City is we do a little bit of research about the interviewee, and we find out a little bit about what people are saying about their leadership style. So it will come as no surprise, no surprise at all, that these are the words that people came up with, Yvonne. Fun, energetic, a real people person, and deeply collaborative. So if people haven't got that out of you by now, then I don't know what. So would you like to add any more to that, Yvonne? What are the most important traits that have brought you your own success, would you say?
I mean, I think learning from lots of people and, learning from, as I said, Marie O'Connor was a fantastic example of this, but I think relationships, they're key. So, I mean, I talked earlier about how important those relationships were for me when I came back into financial services, but, this is a people industry, so we don't make anything. We're not manufacturers. We don't, there's not things that we're producing. It's people that are providing services to people. So our relationship with our clients is absolutely key. That's like, as I said earlier, I think our clients, we don't have clients, we don't have a business. So keeping them, minding them, servicing them as best you can, that's absolutely key. With our staff, we always say people don't leave companies, people leave people. So again, just making sure that we're looking after our staff. On the sales side, I learned it doesn't matter whether you're selling a bottle of wine or whether you're selling a third-party management company service. Again, people buy from people. It's about, getting that connection, developing that relationship and stuff. Like, things happen, things go wrong, but actually when you have a good relationship with somebody, you can talk about it, you can work it out. It's when you don't have that relationship, when things go wrong, actually it might be a minor thing that goes wrong, but actually it might lead to the end of the relationship altogether. So I think the relationships are really key. And, and I guess, as chair of Irish Funds, like, that was a great opportunity to get out and to meet lots of different people in our industry, locally and globally and stuff. So relationships are really important. And I think the other thing, if you ask me kind of to give you a couple of pieces of advice that I'd give to younger people, would be look after your relationships. And the other was get out of your comfort zone, grab the opportunities. And, the people in the company who've been success, they've all put up their hands to do things. They mightn't have known how to do it, but they've said, look, I give that a try. Will you support me? Will you help me in doing that? Will you, whatever it is. But like, the people who have really climbed the ladder quickly are people who've just grabbed opportunities and, and got out of their comfort zone. So like, for me, like, actually going forward for Irish Funds, that was, kind of putting myself out there, meeting people, talking to them, asking them would they vote for me to go on to council initially. That was a big thing and massively rewarding. And then going for chair, again, where you're having to say to people, this is me, this is what I'm about, this is what I think I can do. Will you please support me? If you can't support me, will you tell me? Just be honest with me, tell me. That's fine. If you're going to support somebody else, that's great. But actually, that was hugely rewarding. And last year, as chair, I had to travel a lot. And, particularly the second half of last year was really, really busy with traveling all over the place. But there was an opportunity there was a trip that was being organised. It was kind of business leaders in Ireland to go to Washington, DC. And I probably had been away from home, 3 out of 4 weeks every month or whatever it was. And obviously I had a day job as well. And I kind of thought, oh my God, I don't really have the time to do this. But actually, when I thought about it, I said, okay, no, I'm going to do this. It was just a fantastic trip. We ended up spending 2 days in Washington, DC, meeting all these political leaders in Congress and in the Senate. Got to meet Nancy Pelosi, which was just fabulous. Got to meet Richie Neal and Wilbur Ross. Spend a bit of time with our ex-Prime Minister, Enda Kenny. They met the head of Primark in the US, the former Irish US ambassador to Ireland. So it was a wonderful trip. But it's so easy to say, look, I don't have time to do that. But actually, just grabbing the opportunity, and I think the rewards are at the back. You'll get the rewards from that.
Wow, fantastic lessons for younger people. And if I can call something out, Yvonne, as an executive coach, I'm really sensing from you as we're talking today a really incredible empathy and intuition. I'm curious to know how those skills impact your own leadership and impact your clients.
Yeah, well, look at I think, as I said earlier, it's all about people. Our clients are people, and actually, I think that being human and being, having empathy is more important. I think it's always important in a leader, but it's more important than ever now. And it's important to be able to let people know that actually we all struggle. Things I've found it difficult working from home for 5 or 6 months. I really miss not having the connections with people. I miss not being able to go down to, kind of the various teams that have, and you go down and there's just fun. There's some bit of just lifts the day. And I think it's important that people know that I struggle with, that I have things that I struggle with as well. But as leaders, we need to be I think in this industry we have been incredibly lucky. When I look at other people who, they've lost their jobs, their businesses at risk. There's in asset management we have been extraordinarily lucky. Pretty much overnight, the whole industry has moved to working from home, and I'm not saying it was easy. There was lots of challenges. There was technology challenges. We've had cyber issues. It wasn't easy, but our business has been able to continue, and I think we're incredibly lucky. So I think we spent the first half of the pandemic kind of coping, getting the work done, and keeping things going. But actually, there came a time when you realised actually this isn't 2 weeks or 4 weeks or even 2 months. This is actually going to be 5 months or 6 months or maybe 9 months, that this is the reality, and that kind of takes on a different reality. And then you're looking at my kids are in their teens and early 20s, so they're self-sufficient. They're able to look after themselves. They have laptops. They can do their homeschooling. The people where you have a couple, and they both work and they're in pressurized jobs, and they normally have childcare or schools. Mm-hmm. For them, kind of coping with small children, that's really difficult. So we've spent an awful lot of time with our, with our staff, understanding what are their work environments set up. What's the setup like? Do you have the right chair? Do you have enough screens? Are you sharing with lots of people and you don't have a space to yourself to work at all? So we have a couple of people that we've got back into the office because actually just their home environment just wasn't conducive. And I suppose then, we as leaders need to understand what our people are going through. And then for our people, actually, they're dealing with people our clients are, as I said, our people on the other side. And, sometimes people say, oh my God, the client's cross, or they're annoyed about this, or they're annoyed about that. And it's trying to say to them, well, actually, you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what their home situation is like. You don't know what kind of stresses. So, for them to approach their clients with empathy and with understanding, and actually, listen, I think if your clients can be your friends, and if you can talk to them on a personal level, I think that's just fantastic.
Absolutely. So for my last question, I'm going to take you right back, Yvonne, to your first career, that of the primary school teacher. So I don't think you remember, but I wrote an article that went viral about why our kids don't want to be bankers, because industry has a little bit of a reputation, probably an unfair reputation. So I'd love to know, how would you, as that primary school teacher, encourage kids to join the industry? What would you do?
That's a tough one, Rachel.
I always say the best for the last.
Thank you for that. I was nearly there. Anyway, I think as an industry, we have, our industry has been associated with some pretty negative stuff over the years. So, we've had a reputation for greed and for not doing the right thing. I think we've been associated with crisis. I mean, I think if you ask anybody, the banks used to be held in such high regard, and just people certainly in Ireland and more globally, people just don't hold them. They blame banks and the financial services for the financial crisis in 2008. So we don't have a great reputation. In asset management, I don't think people really understand. The general community don't really understand asset management. So I think the general public understand the whole concept of savings. So, like our parents, our grandparents, we've probably grown up with they've known about savings. But savings to them is putting your money in the bank. It'll earn interest depending on the time. It might earn a lot of interest. It might earn a very little interest. But like that was it, and you had money that was put away for a rainy day or for your future when you were older. You did that. So people understood that. But kind of that traditional savings of bank savings, it's just, it's not okay, it's fine to have a little bit of money there for the rainy day, but it's not going to grow and it's not going to develop and it's not going to give you anything it's going to lose value over time. So I do think it's important for people to understand, and actually, kind of the CEO in Irish Funds, Pat Lardner, he talked about this really well, actually, kind of, and equating our industry to savings. So investments equals savings. That kind of we need different forms now. So we need to kind of people who are putting money into their pension funds, sometimes they don't understand actually what happens with that money. So they don't understand that there's a specialist investment manager who takes that money, invests it into the stock market, or invested into bonds, or invested into private companies, or whatever it is, to get a return and to see that grow. So I think getting that message of kind of investments equals savings equals providing for your future, I think is really important. I think kind of that financial literacy, like that that needs to start in schools. It needs to be part of the curriculum. Kind of one of the things that we support, and one of the charities that we support, is Junior Achievement, and that's for disadvantaged schools and different disadvantaged kids, and they try to that's one of the modules is around savings and stuff. But I think it needs to be across the curriculum generally. We need to be more attractive to the industry. So going back to that, kind of that greed and crisis that we're associated with, actually, that's not the reality for what most of us experience in our jobs. I love my job. I love the team that I work with. I know we do an enormous amount of good. So just making it more relevant to people and making kind of that whole sustainability is so important to younger people. Giving back is so important. So I'll give you one example. We have, and it kind of comes back to the whole diversity and inclusion. Like we have people from about 17 or 18 different nationalities that work in the company. But one of our colleagues, Sukanya, she's from Lebanon. So we have this horrific bomb in Lebanon last week, and it wasn't terrorist related, but you have this horrific situation that's happened in Lebanon, and it's easy for us to think, oh well, but that's over there. But actually, her family are stuck in the middle of that. Her family have been made homeless, and so she was able to tell us how this has impacted her family, and it makes it much more real for all of us. So look at getting that message out, making sure that as an industry we're reflecting that it's a diverse industry. It's not kind of and we're not a diverse industry. And look, Carne, we're on a journey. We have lots of things to do. My next meeting is a meeting of our global sustainability committee. So we have lots to do on that, but actually just making it more relevant and reflect our investor and our client base more. But
Yvonne, I want to acknowledge you, because if there was anyone who could make financial services more exciting, it would definitely be you. So I want to thank you on behalf of all the listeners for joining us with your brilliant energy on Flex in the City today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I really appreciate it.
You just listened to Flex in the City. Catch us on our next episode.